I titled today's talk, Make Yourself Fireproof. Make yourself fireproof. Well, I'll tell you where I got that from. Is for some reason I was looking up something by Louis Armstrong, and the song came to me. We're going back in the 40s, of a song that was written in the 30s titled Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And let me tell you, it is a very cool jazz version of a Bible story titled Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And it took me a while because let me tell you, I've always been struggling with that name, Abednego. But I got it down, and if you hear the song, you can't help but just jot in the kitchen with it. Well, what is this story about? For many of you, maybe you're not familiar with it. It comes out of the book of Daniel. But there was this king, Nebuchadnezzar, and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were part of his echelon, I'm going to just say. And they were under good graces with the king until King Nebuchadnezzar was talked into building a 90-foot gold statue of himself. And after that was built, the king decided that he wanted all the people in the land to come to see the statue when they heard the music and bow down to this 90-foot golden statue. Well, you see, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not want any part of that. They honored God, their God, and they were not about to bend down to what they would call a false idol. And as a result, when the king heard that his upper echelon, 3 of them, were not complying with the order stated by all the people in the kingdom, he was forced to throw them into a fiery furnace. And they gave him one more choice, to bow down. All 3 of them said, no, we will not bow down to a false idol. And so into the fire the 3 of them go. And they even cranked up the furnace stoked that fire as hot as they could get it. And when the king looked into the furnace, he saw not 3 men, but he saw 4. And they were untouched by the fire. And he couldn't believe what he saw, so he encouraged them, get these men out of the fire. Well, only 3 came out. They don't know where the 4th one went. And if you listen to the song, you're going to hear this whole story in a great way. Where did he go? So with that, the king was so taken back by these 3 not being touched. And who was that 4th man that never came out? He was so touched by that he decided that you could worship your God as you choose. And what came out of that for me listening to that song was make yourself fireproof, Kathy. And how do we do this? Well, let me just take, like these 3 guys. How did they become fireproof? When we put ourselves in total allegiance with truth, and I'm talking truth with a capital T. That's your spiritual truth. When you are in total allegiance to your spiritual truth, you will not be consumed. You will not be consumed by anything or anyone in your outer world. This is the metaphysics of this story. Okay? The golden statue represents what Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, called sense consciousness. Sense consciousness is just like this. You perceive it with your five senses. It's things of the material world. And like money, possessions, wealth, health, all the things that we start to make a golden statue out of. And when we don't have those things, then we let our spiritual truth get off kilter. Okay? So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego represent meekness, love, and understanding. And the fourth man is when you realize and own the I am in you and your unity with God, your unity with good. When you own that, there comes the fourth, and that is the fireproof of protection comes to you. You know, can you think of a time in your life where you have been stuck, or as Martha Creek uses this term a lot, or you've been stuck or hooked on things of this world? Think about it for yourself. Answers are different for each and every one of you. Think about a time recently or in not too distant past when you've been hooked or stuck on things of this world. Let's just go back to January 6th, the storm on the Capitol building. How many of us were watching with sadness of this over and over and over, watching it in disbelief? But we didn't just watch it one time. We watched it over and over. And for me, I know I started to get hooked by the disbelief of what was happening. Sometimes the golden statue can be the news media, and we put our focus on the material world, the sense consciousness. We're looking at that and perceiving it with not only our eyes, our ears, our mouth, our voice. You just go. For me, it wasn't until I moved myself to my spiritual truth. I needed to draw from those three guys. I needed to become meek. I would call it more humble. I needed to move to love. And I definitely needed to move myself to understanding that what I was witnessing on my TV was not my truth. It was not my spiritual truth. I needed to remember and this is true for you, you are instilled with 12 spiritual powers. 12 spiritual powers. And to remind myself, I am one with God. I am one with all that is good. Take that on. I am one with God. I am one with all that is good. I always say you can spell God with one O or two. It's all the same. You know, claiming your spiritual truth, being true to yourself. You know, Reverend Sandy, Reverend Tom, and myself, we were asked by a couple of congregants, when you're in your casket and friends and congregation, members of the church, and you are in your casket. So take a time when go perceive when you are in your casket, the three of you ministers, and what is it that you would like your friends, your family, and your congregation to be saying about you? Well, Reverend Sandy said, I would like them to say that I was a wonderful wife, a fine spiritual teacher, and that I was the best 7th grade teacher they ever had. Reverend Tom answered it, well, I would like them to remember and say that I was a good teacher of the Unity teachings. I was dedicated to my spiritual journey. And of course, Reverend Tom wanted to be remembered by he loved to laugh. When it came to Reverend Kathy's time to give her answer, she thought for a moment, and then she said, I'd like them to say, look, she's breathing. Each one of us answered with our spiritual truth. It's claiming that I am one with the good. You know, I want to read an excerpt from Amanda Gorman's poem. If you have not heard the poet laureate from the inauguration, 22 years old, Amanda Gorman's poem, and I'm telling you, you can easily print off the words. It's lengthy, but I'm telling you, her emotions were amazing. But I just want to grab an excerpt out of there. Part of this. Tyrants fear the poet. Now that we know it, we can't blow it. We owe it to show it, not slow it, although it hurts to sow it when the world skirts below it. Hope, we must bestow it like a wick in the poet so it can grow it, bringing with it stories to rewrite, the story of a Texas city, depleted but not defeated, a history written that need not be repeated, a nation composed but not yet completed. A nation composed but not yet completed. What about that for yourself? Well, I am a nation, and I am not yet completed. There's a quote from a Buddhist book called Brief Teaching, and it says, the Buddhist way invites us to take refuge in openness and in accepting that to do this, we must transcend all rigid identities. We must become like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I'll say that again. The Buddhist way invites us to take refuge in the openness and in accepting that to do this, we must transcend all rigid identities. Not only about ourselves, but the rigid identities we hold towards people who are not like us, who don't believe like we do, who don't look like we do, who don't act like we do. We must go beyond that and let go of the rigidness of putting labels on people. You know, Joel Osteen says, I love this. God says, I hear you constantly telling me what you don't have. I'm not interested in that. I am interested in what you do have. Don't compare yourself to others. You were not anointed to be them. You were anointed to be who? You. You were anointed to be you, not anybody else. There will always be appearances of a 90-foot golden statue. There's always going to be appearances of fiery furnaces. The coronavirus, not moving fast enough on these vaccines. Anybody been saying that over the last couple of weeks? You know, I have family and friends in Florida and the frustrations that they've been dealing with, you know, trying to get the vaccine. There's our Florida people raising their hands. You know, it's It's crazy. I signed up. The vaccine opened up for registration. By the time I filled out the registration, boop, filled. So we've all got these golden statues and fiery furnaces in front of us. What about my rent is due? What about people and friends, family and friends are making their transitions during this time? Anybody feel like nobody calls to check on me? How about this one, everybody? When is our church going to open? They're not wearing their mask. Do you hear how quickly we move into making judgments, making rigid perceptions? I get it. The key is, don't deny. We're going to have those thoughts. We're going to have those feelings rise up. It's fact. There's facts. The vaccine's not flowing fast enough for us. You know, the people are making their transition in a very struggling time when we can't be at their bedsides. People are not wearing their mask. You know, these are realities. But if we stay stuck or hooked, do you feel peace or pain? My famous question to always ask myself, does this thought bring me peace or pain? And if the answer is pain at any time during the day, when you get caught, if it's pain, the beauty of it is you've been given free will to what? Choose again. You know, Eckhart Tolle says, stay in the present moment. That's where you find peace. Buddhism teaches that as well. Unity also subscribes to that. Staying in the present now moment. It's not easy though. Not easy for me, and I know many of you. Some of these, this past year and this year also have been hard on almost all of us. But I want to encourage you. I'm shifting gears just a little bit here because it's coming to me. How important it is for each one of us to not look at 2020 as being the year of hell. Because if you really, really meditate on 2020, you're going to find a lot of positive things that transpired for you personally and transpired for people you know. It has made a difference in relationships. It has made all of us appreciate teachers and nurses and frontline workers. Think about the good things that happened in 2020 as a result of what something we would call negative. Think about how fireproof you have become in 2020 as we are moving now and we are into 2021. Think about how we are all going to handle this coming year together in a whole different consciousness. We're all learning to be creative, aren't we? I want to look at a show of hands of people who would have never thought they would have ever connected and gone to church on a Zoom screen or Facebook Live. Raise your hand. We never thought we'd be here. And look at us. Look at us. And I can look at many of you, and I know that just recently somebody has reached out to help you figure out how to get on this screen. And then we get to see your faces. This is the closest thing. It's the next closest thing to being back together. So I just want you to applaud that. It wasn't, we can focus on the golden 90-foot statue that we want to call the hell of 2020, or we can focus on how we were fireproof and how amazing we are. So again, I want to just reinforce to you, it's not about denying that there are struggles and that there are frustrations and there are extreme sad times. On the human level, that's true. But we are what? We are human beings, but more the spiritual truth of you is what? You are a spiritual being. Spiritual beings having a human experience. So the humanness looks at golden statues, fiery furnaces, looks at the struggles. The spiritual being, when aligned with truth, knows, I am fireproof. I have all that I need because I am a divine spark of the Creator. How can I not be? When we dig a little deeper, just like I had you do for 2020, when we dig a little deeper, we will find, that brings me to a story. There was a man who owned oil fields, and he had the greatest reserves of oil that the world had ever seen. He had drilled many wells, but lately he's drilling these wells, and each time he would quit at about 10 feet, and he would get frustrated. And then he would move a few feet to the right, drill down 10 feet, nothing. He'd move 10 feet to the left, drill down 10 feet, nothing. Finally, after a lifetime of struggles and hundreds of non-producing wells, he took the time one day to drill deeper and deeper into the ground, more than he had ever drilled before. And he produced a gusher that never quit. When we dig deeper into our spiritual nature. How do we do that? Meditate. Get quiet. Shut the TV off. Shut the screens off. And get quiet. How do we dig deeper spiritually? Get out in nature. I know it's a little chilly, but you know what? Bundle up. We live here in Ohio, and by gosh, we know how to bundle up. Michael's minister's still outside doing drive-in church. He says, well, think about it. I'd go to a Bengals game and sit through the whole game outside. Why can't I go outside and be with a tree? Why can't I go outside and be with you? I'm all about doing porch visits. You just let me know. Put the coffee on and I'll be there. Be creative. Dig a little deeper. The reserves are there. You just have to dig a little deeper. I'd like to close with our affirmation that I put up for this week. And it's the personal affirmation that I would love for you, when you see it on the screen, I'd love for you to write it down. And it's also on your Friday email blast. So if you're not getting our email blast, you're missing out. You need to call the office. And if you're not opening our Friday email blast, hello, I'll bet you'd open it if there was a coupon to Macy's or Home Depot. Can you open it for your spiritual community on Fridays? Look at this. This is a great affirmation. Are you ready to say it together? We'll say it 3 times. What is now my test will become my testimony. Ready? What is now my test will become my testimony. Take that in. What is now my test will become my testimony. Think about that from your childhood to present moment. How many tests that you've had in your life that have become already your testimony, and you're not done yet. So with that, I say namaste. Christ in me. As I look around and see all of you, and I also hold our Facebook audience in my namaste, that the Christ in me truly sees and honors that Christ's presence in each and every one of you. Namaste.